So Patsy is asking, why did the Samaritan woman leave her jars?
If I could grab this, Patsy, this is a fantastic question. I absolutely love this because there's so much spiritual truth to what you're asking. So you're asking the right kind of question in this story. And you're, going back to the story in John chapter 4. So if we could just kind of go through it really quick, just to get some context, if any viewers are out there who are not familiar with the story of the Samaritan woman. So basically, the story in a nutshell is that Jesus is trying to get somewhere, and he passes through the city of, or um, this country of Samaria. And the thing is, Jesus is a Jew. He's from Israel. And the thing is that is the Jews and the Samaritans were not necessarily friends. They were kind of at odds with each other. And this was because in years past, there were Jews who had intermarried with other religions or people of other, pagan beliefs, and they kind of made their own belief system that was kind of a mix of the true Jewish faith along with some other beliefs that weren't quite right. And so a lot of the Jews in Jesus's time actually believed that they were superior or better than these Samaritans, and they really looked down on them. And it was a terrible thing, and Jesus really came to break down these barriers, because Jesus's message isn't just for one people group. His message is for everybody, because that's who Jesus is. And so when you go to the book of John, chapter 4, I'm just going to kind of summarize the story that, Jesus is trying to pass through, and he goes to a well around noontime, which is like the heat of the day, right? Like, who wants to go, have to carry all your big jugs of water when it's the hottest time of the day? But that's when Jesus arrives, and that's when he meets this woman. And so Jesus, the first thing he says is, "Will you give me some water?" And he asks her a favor, which is something you would never really do to an enemy. And so this woman says, she doesn't even respond other than saying, "How can you, a Jew, ask me, a Samaritan, water? Like, you have nothing to do with me." Like, she's very much thrown back by this. And so Jesus um answers her. He says, in verse 10, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." And so here we see Jesus is already making a spiritual reference. Jesus is already demonstrating, like, hey, I know I'm asking you for physical water, but that has nothing to do with what I'm here about. I'm here for your spiritual needs. And so Jesus is offering her living water. He's already kind of getting to that point that he wants to offer her something better than what she's there looking for. She's looking for something physical water, but Jesus is offering spiritual water. And so, she basically, withdraws and goes, she doesn't understand. She's like, the well is deep. You have nothing to draw with. Where are you talking about getting living water? Um, and in a sense, this is a spiritual condition of where she's at too, is that she says this well is deep. Her pain, the whole inside of her is deep. And she's saying, you have nothing to draw with. Basically, Jesus, you're not getting to me. And Jesus, and then she tries to make a religious debate. So Jesus just says, "Everybody who drinks of this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give him will be in them a spring of water dwelling up into eternal life." And so Jesus is showing the promise of salvation. That's what Jesus is offering to her. And she says, "Actually, I want this water." So she's opening up to Jesus. And she says, so I don't, but she almost misunderstands it. She says, "So I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water," because she actually has a lot of embarrassment about um, being here in this public place. And so Jesus gets right to the point and asks her, "Go call your husband and come back." And she just says, "I have no husband." And Jesus, calls her out right away. He says, "You're right. You have no husband. You've well said that, because the fact is you've had 5 husbands, and this guy, number six you're with now, is not even your husband. So what you said is quite true." And so she's completely taken back, because he's totally exposed her. He knows, her past. She can't hide from him, but yet he's offering her salvation. She's fully known and fully loved, fully accepted. And it's such a beautiful story. Now, She tries to do this religious debate, and Jesus just having no part of it because Jesus does not care about religious debates. And so, um, Jesus, she basically brings up, I've heard that the Messiah might be coming. And Jesus basically tells her, I am. And he hadn't revealed to almost anyone that who he was or his purpose on this earth. And that's where we get to what you're talking about, her leaving her water pot. And so, she goes, basically in verse 28, it says, Then leaving her water jar, the woman went back to the town and said to the people, Come see a man who told me everything ever I did. Could this be the Messiah? And so basically, she left the physical water because she was after something more. She was after that spiritual water that only Jesus could provide. And so here I definitely see it's just like a full surrender when it's saying she left her water pot. She left the earthly desires she had. She left her earthly cares behind, and she just sought after something way more important, which was to follow Christ. And she actually became basically the best evangelist that the world has ever seen. She brought the whole town. And if you read the rest of the story, it's really, really awesome. Basically, the whole city of Samaria becomes converted because of this woman and her telling her testimony of how Jesus had shown her who she was and yet still offered her the gift of salvation. And so she's declaring to these people who Christ is, that he is a Messiah and he is a loving God, he is a forgiving God, and he's a God who's offering us more than just our physical needs. So yes, she definitely left those water jars because she had no care for them anymore. She was after something more and something greater.